What if I told you that the single biggest obstacle standing between you and the life you want is something you do over 16,000 times every single day? Not your work ethic, not your circumstances, not your bank balance. Something far more invisible than any of those things. It's the way you talk to yourself. And I know, you've heard some version of that before. Positive thinking, affirmations, vision boards. You've probably rolled your eyes at all of it. I did too. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share with you isn't positive thinking. It's not about pretending your life is perfect when it isn't. It's not about lying to yourself with a smile plastered on your face. It's about understanding something that neuroscientists have been quietly confirming for decades. Something that completely changed the way I function, the way I make decisions, and the way I experience my own life. And it started with 3 days. Just 3 days of doing something differently. I want you to think about the last time things didn't go your way. Maybe it was a conversation that went wrong, a goal you didn't hit, a decision that backfired, a morning where everything just felt heavy before it even began. Now think about what you said to yourself in that moment. Not out loud necessarily. That quiet internal voice, a running commentary that plays underneath everything you do. What was it saying? For most people, and I mean most, not some, not a few, that voice sounds something like this. Of course, that happened to me. I knew I was going to mess that up. Why do I even bother? I'm just not built for this. And here's what I want you to understand. Those aren't just thoughts. They're not just feelings. They are instructions. Your brain, the most sophisticated biological computer ever created, is listening to every single word of that internal monologue. And it's doing something remarkable with it. Something most people never realize is happening. It's building. Every thought you repeat. Every phrase you use habitually. Every word you attach to yourself. Your brain is constructing neural architecture around it. It's physically reinforcing those pathways. Making them faster. Making them more automatic. Making them feel more true. Which means every time you've said, "I'm not good enough," your brain got a little bit better at believing it. Every time you've said, "This always happens to me," your brain got more efficient at finding evidence that it does. Not because you're broken. Not because you're weak. Because your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It's following the instructions you've been giving it. That is both the most sobering thing I've ever learned and the most freeing. Because if your current reality was built by your words, then your future reality can be rebuilt the same way. Let me give you the part that actually made this real for me. Because I'm not asking you to just take my word for it. Your brain has a feature called neuroplasticity. You might have heard that word before, but let me tell you what it actually means in your everyday life. It means your brain is not fixed. It is not set in stone. The neural connections that fire inside your mind, the pathways that determine how you think, how you respond, how you feel, those are not permanent structures. They are living tissue, and they change based on use. You repeat a thought, whether it's "I'm capable" or "I always fail." The neurons involved in that thought fire together. And when neurons fire together repeatedly, they wire together. The pathway becomes stronger, faster, more automatic. This is why your negative self-talk doesn't just feel like a bad habit. It feels like the truth. Because your brain has literally wired itself to produce that thought automatically, without effort, without your permission. Scientists call this Hebbian learning. You might know it as neurons that fire together, wire together. And here's the part that changes everything. The same mechanism that built those pathways can rebuild them. Your subconscious mind, the part of your brain that's running in the background right now, processing everything around you, is operating on filters. And those filters are built almost entirely from your dominant thoughts and words. When you habitually say, "I can't afford this," your subconscious filters out opportunities related to abundance. It literally stops seeing them. Not metaphorically, literally. The reticular activating system, the brain's filtering mechanism, learns what to look for based on what you repeatedly tell it matters. Change the words. Change the filter. Change what you see. I remember reading about a study where two groups of people were asked to perform a physical task. One group mentally rehearsed the task beforehand. The other group physically practiced it. The mental rehearsal group improved almost as much as the group that physically trained. Almost as much. Your brain responding to vivid internal language in a way that's nearly indistinguishable from lived experience. That's not motivation. That's biology. Which means when you speak to yourself, when you use deliberate, directed language, you're not just affecting your mood. You're affecting your brain's actual physical structure. And this is why what I did for those 3 days worked. Not because I believed every word at first, not because I felt it immediately, but because the repetition itself was doing something real at a neurological level. Now you might be wondering, why 3 days specifically? Error question. 3 days isn't a magic number plucked from thin air. It's the minimum viable disruption. Here's what I mean. Your current thought patterns, the automatic self-talk that runs without you even noticing, those patterns are deeply grooved. Like a river that's been cutting the same channel for years. The water doesn't flow that way because it wants to. It flows that way because the channel is already there. One day of new thinking isn't enough to disrupt that. It barely registers against years of established pattern. But 3 days create something different. 3 days is long enough to interrupt the automaticity, but short enough to feel achievable. It's short enough that you can commit with intensity, real intensity, rather than vague, half-hearted effort spread across weeks. And intensity matters, because your brain doesn't just respond to repetition. It responds to repetition combined with emotional engagement. The stronger the emotional signal, the faster the neural pathway forms. 3 focused, intentional days generate more neurological change than 3 unfocused weeks. And here's what tends to happen across those 3 days. Because I've tested this not just on myself, but in conversations with hundreds of people who've tried it. Day 1. Resistance. The moment you try to redirect your self-talk, the old pattern fights back. You say something like, "I am becoming more capable every day," and a voice in your head immediately responds, "That's not true." This is normal. Expected. This isn't failure. This is your brain protecting the structure it's built. The resistance is proof something is happening. Day 2. Friction. The resistance is still there, but it's quieter. You're not convinced yet, but the automatic rejection has softened. There's a crack in the wall. New language has started to get through. You might even catch yourself for a moment, actually considering the possibility that the new thought could be true. Day 3. The shift. This is the day something genuinely changes. Your brain stops spending energy resisting the new pattern and starts, quietly, looking for evidence to support it. Instead of automatically thinking that won't work for me, it starts asking, how could that work for me? The filter has begun to shift. 3 days doesn't complete the transformation. Let me be clear about that. But it starts the engine. And an engine in motion is infinitely easier to keep moving than one that's stalled. Before I walk you through the exact framework I used, I need to talk about something that most people get completely wrong when they try this. They try to fight their negative self-talk. That is the fastest way to make it louder. Your brain has a well-documented phenomenon, sometimes called ironic process theory. The moment you tell yourself, "Don't think about that," you think about it. The moment you try to suppress a thought, it rebounds with more force. So the goal isn't to eliminate your negative inner voice. The goal is to redirect it. Think of it like this. Imagine your self-talk as a stream of water. Negative self-talk is water flowing in a particular direction. You don't dam the river, because that just builds pressure. You build a new channel alongside it, and gradually you direct more and more water into the new route. The old channel doesn't disappear overnight, but over time, with consistent redirection, the new channel gets deeper, faster, more natural, and the old one starts to dry up through disuse. This is the principle behind the specific language I'm going to give you. None of it is about denial. None of it asks you to pretend your current reality doesn't exist. Instead, it works with your brain's natural orientation toward motion and direction. Here's the difference. Denial. I am successful. Your brain knows that's not fully true yet. It rejects it. It says, redirection. I am becoming someone who creates success. Your brain accepts motion, can follow a direction even when the destination isn't reached yet. Denial. I am confident. If you're not, your brain flags the lie. Redirection. I am growing more confident with every experience I move through. True. Verifiable. Your brain can get behind this. Then I find lights in. Do you see the distinction? We're not lying to ourselves. We're giving our subconscious a direction to travel in. And your subconscious is extraordinarily good at moving toward whatever direction you consistently point it. The old patterns in your mind. I'm not smart enough. I'm not where I should be. I always struggle with money. I'm not the kind of person who gets those opportunities. Those patterns feel like facts, but they're not facts. They're deeply practiced thoughts. And practiced thoughts can be replaced by better practiced ones. Now, let me give you the actual structure. 3 parts. Morning, midday, evening. Each one serves a different neurological function. Your brain is in its most receptive state twice a day. In the first 20 minutes after waking, and in the 20 minutes before sleep. In these windows, the brain is in what's called a hypnagogic or hypnopompic state. A state closer to the tau brain waves than the fully alert beta state you operate in during the day. In simple terms, whatever you feed your brain in these windows gets absorbed more deeply. The filter is down. The critical mind is quieter. The subconscious is more open. And most people in those first waking minutes immediately reach for their phone. They hand over the most valuable real estate in their day to social media, to news, to other people's agendas. What I did instead, what I'm asking you to try, is this. Before you reach for anything, before your feet hit the floor, take 3 slow, deliberate breaths. In through the nose, out through the mouth. 3 breaths. That's all. Those 3 breaths do something important. They shift your nervous system out of the low-grade stress response that most of us wake up in and into a state where the words you're about to say can actually land. Then, out loud, not in your head, out loud, say this: today I'm open to growth. I am moving forward. Something good is already in motion for me. That's it. Don't overthink it. Don't perform it. Just say it out loud to yourself. Then stand up. Look at yourself in the mirror. Actually look and add this: I'm becoming someone I'm proud of. Not because everything is perfect, but because I keep choosing to move forward anyway. Now, here's why this specific language works. I am becoming signals motion, not an achieved state, but an ongoing one. Your brain doesn't reject it as false because it's directional rather than declarative. Something good is already in motion primes the reticular activating system. You've just told your brain's filter what to look for. For the rest of the day, it will find it. I keep choosing to move forward acknowledges difficulty without surrendering to it. It rewires your identity around resilience rather than perfection. Spend 5 minutes in this space. Walk slowly. Don't rush into the noise of the day. Let the words settle. This is the piece most people miss, and it's arguably the most important one, because the morning protocol sets the intention. But the middle of the day is where your old patterns attack. Something goes wrong at work. A conversation doesn't land the way you wanted. A number comes back lower than you expected. A task takes 3 times as long as it should. And in that moment, automatically, without you even noticing, the old voice fires up. See, this is what always happens. Why do I bother? I'm falling behind. Your job in that moment is not to suppress it. Your job is to catch it and redirect. Keep a small note somewhere visible to you. On your phone lock screen. A sticky note on your desk. Somewhere you'll see it when things feel hard. Write this on it. This is data, not destiny. 4 words. Simple, but neurologically precise. When you label a difficult experience as data rather than proof of failure, you shift the brain from a threat state into a problem-solving state. The amygdala, your brain's alarm system, quiets. The prefrontal cortex, where creative thinking happens, activates. You're not telling yourself the challenge isn't real. You're telling your brain how to categorize it. And that categorization changes your physiological response, which changes your available options, which changes your next action. When you catch yourself in negative self-talk during the day, don't fight it. Just append 1 phrase. And I'm figuring it out. I'm behind, and I'm figuring it out. This is hard, and I'm figuring it out. I don't know what to do yet, and I'm figuring it out. That appended phrase doesn't deny the difficulty. It refuses to let the difficulty be the final word. It keeps your brain in motion rather than collapse. This is where the real rewiring happens. Because your brain consolidates memory and builds neural architecture, primarily during sleep. What you feed it in the hour before sleep is what it works with through the night. Most people end their days either doom scrolling through their phones or mentally replaying everything that went wrong. What that does neurologically is this. It consolidates the negative experiences. It reinforces the I didn't do enough or nothing is working narrative. And your brain goes to sleep running those patterns. What I want you to do instead takes literally 3 minutes. Sit somewhere quiet. No phone. Just you. and answer 3 questions, out loud or in writing. 1. What did I move forward today? Doesn't have to be big. Any forward motion counts. You made a decision. You had a hard conversation. You did the thing you'd been avoiding. Sue kept going when you wanted to stop. What moved forward today? 2. What did I learn today that I didn't know yesterday? Again, not profound. Maybe you learned something about how a person responds. Maybe you learned that a particular approach doesn't work. Maybe you learned you're more resilient than you thought. What do you know now that you didn't this morning? 3. What am I choosing tomorrow? Not hoping, choosing. There's a difference. Hope is passive. Choice is directional. What are you deliberately choosing to do, to think, to prioritize tomorrow? And then, before sleep, say this: while I rest, my mind is organizing everything I've experienced today into something useful. I am growing even when I am still. That language isn't poetry. It's instruction. You're telling your subconscious what to do with the night. Research on memory consolidation suggests your brain will actually engage with that directive. It will process. It will connect. It will prepare. Let me tell you what actually changes when you do this consistently. Because it doesn't happen the way most people expect. It's not like a light switching on. Without a dramatic moment of sudden clarity where everything becomes obvious and easy. Subtler than that. And in some ways, that's what makes it more powerful. The first thing you notice is a delay. Before, when something went wrong, the negative self-talk was instant. Automatic. You were 3 sentences deep into, of course this happened, before you even registered what was happening. After a few days of this practice, you start to notice a tiny gap. Fraction of a second where you catch the thought before it fully forms. That gap is everything. Because in that gap lives your ability to choose. Viktor Frankl, one of the most extraordinary human beings who ever lived, said that between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power and our growth. Most people have never experienced that space. Their stimulus and response are fused together by years of unchecked automatic thought. This practice creates the space. The second thing you notice is what you start to see. Remember the reticular activating system, the brain's filter? Once you've been directing it toward possibility, toward growth, toward forward motion, it starts finding those things. Not because they weren't there before. They were always there. But your filter wasn't configured to show them to you. You start noticing opportunities you would have scrolled past. You start hearing things in conversations that you would have dismissed. You start seeing a path forward in situations that previously felt like dead ends. Your external world hasn't changed. Your filter has. And a changed filter changes everything you see. The third shift is in how you talk about yourself to other people. This one is subtle but significant. Once your internal language starts to shift, your external language follows. You stop describing yourself with fixed, limiting labels. You stop saying, "I'm just not good at that." You start saying, "I'm still learning that." You stop saying, "I don't have time." You start saying, "That's not where I'm choosing to put my focus right now." Small shifts in language. Enormous shifts in how others perceive you and how you perceive yourself. And the fourth shift, the one that tends to surprise people the most, is physical. Your nervous system responds to your thoughts. That is not metaphor. When you think a threatening thought, your body produces cortisol. Your muscles tense. Your breathing shallows. Your digestion slows. Your immune function suppresses. When you think a thought of expansion, of possibility, of capability, your body produces a different chemical signature. Dopamine, serotonin. Your shoulders drop. Your breathing deepens. Your body moves differently through the world. After 3 days of this, people report that they feel physically different. Not because they changed their diet or their exercise routine, because they changed the chemical environment inside their own body through the words they chose to use. I want to be honest with you about something, because I think the reason most people don't maintain this practice isn't because they don't believe in it. It's because of what happens on day 1. Say something like, "I am growing into my potential," and the immediate internal response is, "No, you're not. Look at your life." That's not true. And because that response feels true, because it's fast, automatic, confident, most people conclude that this doesn't work for them, that they're somehow the exception, that their negative self-talk is particularly accurate or particularly stubborn. It's not. That response is just a well-practiced pattern defending itself. Here's what I want you to understand about that resistance. It's not evidence that you're right about yourself. It's evidence that the old pathway is strong. And strong pathways didn't become strong because they were true. They became strong because they were repeated. Resistance on day 1 is the wall. The resistance on day 2 is the wall cracking. The absence of resistance on day 3, or the quiet shift from resistance to curiosity, is the beginning of a new architecture. Most people quit at day 1. They experience the resistance and interpret it as proof that nothing is changing. But the resistance is proof that something is happening. It's the old pattern exerting energy to hold its position. It can only do that for so long before it exhausts itself. You just have to outlast it. 3 days. You just have to outlast it for 3 days. And here's a practical tip that helped me enormously. Don't try to believe the new thoughts at first. That's not the goal on day 1, or even day 2. The goal is simply to say them consistently, without needing to believe them yet. You're not convincing yourself. You're watering a seed. Belief follows consistent action, not the other way around. Plant the seed and water it for 3 days. The belief grows after. I want to zoom out for a moment, because what we're really talking about here isn't just feeling better in the morning. It isn't just a mindset shift. It's something far more significant. The words you use to describe yourself become the container. Your life grows inside. If you consistently describe yourself as someone who struggles, your life will organize itself around struggle, not because the universe is punishing you, but because your choices, your attention, your interpretations, your decisions, all of those are filtered through the story you're telling about yourself. A person who tells themselves opportunities always pass me by will make 10,000 micro-decisions every day that are perfectly calibrated to confirm that belief. They won't send the email. They won't speak up in the room. They won't ask the question. Not consciously, not deliberately, but consistently. Because the story says they won't get a yes anyway. A person who tells themselves, "I notice and act on good opportunities," makes 10,000 different micro-decisions. They send the email. They speak up. They ask. They get different results. Not because they're luckier, but because they're showing up differently. The story is the filter. The filter is the decisions. The decisions are the results. The results confirm the story. This is why changing the story, which starts with changing the language, is the highest leverage move available to any human being. Not the hardest work. Not the most dramatic change. Highest leverage, 1. And 3 days is enough to begin. Not to complete it. Not to arrive. But to feel for the first time what it's like to live inside a different story. And once you feel that, once you get even a small taste of what's available on the other side of your habitual self-talk, you don't want to go back. So here's exactly what I'm asking you to do. Starting today. Not someday. Today. 3 days. 72 hours. 3 things a day. Morning, 5 minutes. Before your phone. Before the noise. 3 breaths. Then say out loud. Today, I'm open to growth. I am moving forward. Something good is already in motion for me. Then in the mirror, I am becoming someone I'm proud of. Not because everything is perfect, but because I keep choosing to move forward. That's it. 5 minutes. Before the world gets in. Midday, 30 seconds. Whenever something goes wrong, and something will, catch the automatic thought. Then say, this is data, not destiny, and I'm figuring it out. You don't have to believe it immediately. Just say it. Redirect the stream. Evening, 3 minutes. Sit quietly. Answer 3 questions. Out loud or in writing. What did I move forward today? What did I learn today that I didn't know yesterday? What am I choosing tomorrow? Then before sleep. While I rest, my mind is organizing everything I've experienced into something useful. I am growing even when I am still. That is the entire framework. Morning. Midday. Evening. And 3 days. And I want you to notice something about the commitment I'm asking for. I'm not asking you to overhaul your life. I'm not asking you to wake up at 4 a.m. or run a marathon or delete your social media. I'm asking for 8 minutes a day, divided across 3 moments, for 3 days. 8 minutes. 3 days. Because the biggest mistake people make when trying to change is going too big too fast. They try to change everything at once. And when life inevitably creates friction with the new system, they collapse back to the old one. This is different. This is small enough to actually do. Consistent enough to actually work. And targeted precisely at the place where the most leverage lies, the language running in your own mind. And after 3 days, if you've actually done it, here's what I want you to do. Extend it by 3 days. Not forever. Not a lifelong commitment you've got to feel the weight of. Just 3 more days. Because here's the truth about sustainable change. It doesn't come from willpower. Willpower is a finite resource, and it depletes under stress. Exactly the moments when you need it most. Sustainable change comes from identity. From shifting the story about who you are, rather than trying to force different behavior through grind alone. And 3-day cycles are long enough to build momentum and short enough to feel manageable. Every 3 days you recommit. Every 3 days you're choosing again. Not because the choice is hard, but because conscious, active choice creates a different kind of neural engagement than passive habit. After about 3 weeks of this, roughly 7 3-day cycles, you'll notice the morning protocol starts to feel incomplete without it. The midday redirect becomes automatic. Evening questions start happening naturally, almost without effort. That's the point. That's when the new channel in the river has become deep enough that the water naturally flows there. In the old channel, the one that said you weren't enough, that things always went wrong for you, that opportunity wasn't for people like you. That channel starts to go dry. Not because you forced it to. Because you built something better alongside it, and your brain, ever efficient, ever adaptive, chose the path of least resistance, which you built on purpose, with words. I'll leave you with this. For every version of your life, the one you're living now, and every future version, was built with words. Words you heard. Words you believed. Words you repeated until they became the walls around your world. Didn't choose most of those words consciously. They came from people around you when you were young, from experiences that left a mark, from failures that were never reframed. You inherited a language, and you've been living inside it ever since. But inheritance isn't destiny, because now you know that the same mechanism that built those patterns can build new ones. You know that your brain is not fixed. It is plastic, adaptive, responsive. You know that 3 days of deliberate language can begin to create neurological change that years of vague hoping never did. You are not your past self-talk. You are not the voice that says you're not enough, not ready, not capable. You are the person who has the ability, right now, in this moment, to decide that from this point forward, you are going to speak to yourself the way someone who believes in you would. Not because it's easy, because it's available. And because the life waiting on the other side of your words, the decisions you'll make, the things you'll attempt, the person you'll grow into, that life has been there all along, waiting for you to talk yourself into it. The 3 days. Start tonight.